Hello, everyone, and welcome to DiRōNA Day, May 3rd, 2021, I guess we are. We're grateful, all of you. We know how important your time is, and especially on a Monday. So we're grateful to all of you for joining us today. It's really important to us. And I think it's important for all restaurateurs and chefs today, maybe, to get together over the next 2 hours. We have traveled virtually across the continent from Bermuda to Monterey to Florida to Toronto. Great restaurateurs and great chefs have given up their time today to come together and talk about the important things, especially what they faced over the last year with the pandemic. Closures, restrictions, some are still under them. So today's a great chance for all the restaurateurs and chefs to really come together and listen to the wisdom of some of the legendary greats. We have Ted Balestreri with us today, Andrea Gonzmark from the Columbia Restaurant Group, Chef Bruno Serato is always wonderful from the Anaheim White House, and some key industry leaders. Rob Gifford is here with us today from the NRAEF to chat a bit about scholarships and things. And always legendary restaurateur John Arena. I'll be popping by later on today with some words of wisdom and some important things. So we'll try and keep this down to 2 hours. You'll be able to find us. Kelly and I will be in the networking session today. You can always come over and pop in and say hello. You have some important news for DiRōNA today to share.
I do. I have some really exciting news, and I'm really happy to announce that the DiRōNA awards for this year are being printed and shipped to our restaurants at no charge. We understand how difficult things have been for for restaurants in general and our DiRōNA awarded restaurants. So for each awarded restaurant, we're going to ship and print no charge the DiRōNA certificates. And so take a look for it in your mailbox in the coming weeks to capture us there.
So today wouldn't be possible without our partners, and Ecolab has definitely been there with DiRōNA since day one, 31 years ago, I guess, this year. They're here with us today. So during today's interviews will be a 20-minute presentation from Ecolab, an important one, I believe, for all restaurateurs and chefs to see. They've titled it Decoupling COVID-19 Practices. I think it'll be important not only for your restaurant, but maybe for your homes and for everybody's safety. So Kaycee Strewler is here with us from Ecolab, and she's here with us live today. So you can catch her immediately following her presentation. Ecolab will have a booth there on the right-hand side of your screen, just under the main stage, so you can join in and ask her any questions. I'm sure she'd love to meet you, as would we. So Kelly and I will be in the networking session. So time's of the essence always. We have 2 hours today for today's event. Following it, we will have a bit of a video slideshow. Lots of great photos from over the years will be there at the end of today. Most importantly, get together afterwards. A lot of great friendships and fellowship have been a part of DiRōNA, and I know a lot of you want to get together and networking following, and that'll be in the networking session on the right. So enjoy that.
Awesome. I'm thrilled to announce that our host today is Abby Wilken. She has been working with us tirelessly this whole week to put together all these great interviews. So we're excited to have her with us, and we know you're going to be in good hands with Abby for the next 2 hours. So take it away, Abby.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to DiRōNA Day. My name is Abby Wilken, and I am the event manager at DiRōNA. On behalf of our entire DiRōNA team, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Over the past week, I was honored to meet and interview the following speakers that I am so excited to share with you today. The order of speakers for today's program is as follows. Andrea Gonzmark from Columbia Restaurant in Tampa, Florida. Chef Bruno Serato from Anaheim White House in Anaheim, California. Nick DiDonato from Blue Blood Steakhouse in Toronto, Ontario. Chef Emily Ferrari from Maritana in St. Pete Beach, Florida. Phillip Barnett from Barracuda in Hamilton, Bermuda. Chef Jasper Mirabile from Mirabile's in Kansas City, Missouri. Kaycee Strewler from Ecolab. Rob Gifford from the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation. Ted Balestreri from the Sardine Factory in Monterey, California. John Arena from Toronto, Ontario. We will follow with closing remarks, and we will conclude today with a networking session and the opportunity for you to take a look at some photos from DiRōNA, from some of DiRōNA's events since 1991. We hope to keep you entertained over the next 2 hours and that you enjoy the presentations. First up today, we have Andrea Gonzmark from Columbia Restaurant in Tampa, Florida. Our next interview will be with Andrea Gonzmark from the Columbia Restaurant Group in Florida. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea.
Thank you for having me, Abby.
You have such a rich family history in the industry. Do you mind giving us a little bit of background information?
I am so proud of our history and my family. My great-great-grandfather came to Ybor City here in Tampa back in the early 1900s with a dream, just like anyone else who immigrated to the United States. And he started a small corner cafe back in 1905 that served the delicious food from home, being from Cuba and Spain. Of course, Cuban coffee, which they so missed. And eventually we grew room by room. So from a corner cafe, we went to 15 dining rooms. We've got 1,700 seats and we've got 5 Columbias.
Wow, that's fantastic. And then what was it like, growing up in the industry? Because really, you've been in these restaurants since you were born.
Growing up in the restaurant was a wonderful experience. I started when I was 10 years old. My father said, it's time for you to start getting exposed to what I do every day. So I started filing at 10. And when I was 11, I started hostessing, worked there all throughout high school, went away to business school, came back, and then I just learned all of the ins and the outs, dishwashing, bussing, I did it all. But really being a child, though, growing up outside of being in the restaurant, it was great because I could go and I would see my father at work. I would see my uncle at work. I would see my cousins. I would see my parents. Many Saturday nights I would go with my grandmother and we would sit in the dining room and watch the flamenco dancers and watch my grandfather Caesar play his violin. The restaurant is so much more than just a restaurant to me. It truly is my second home. Everyone that works for me is not employees, they're family. I hug at least 24 people when walking through our restaurant here in Ybor City. It's something I couldn't imagine my life without.
It sounds like it was a no-brainer for you to, join in on the family business and, really make that your lifelong career. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And Florida's actually been lucky. It's been the least impacted, I think, for restaurants as far as COVID goes. How have your restaurants been impacted?
Of course, we've been very fortunate here in Florida that Governor DeSantis has opened us up as soon as we could, has kept us open. Of course, we were closed for 2 months, a little over 2 months, because we didn't actually open right away. Because when we opened, we wanted to make sure we opened, making sure our employees and our customers felt safe. So we didn't open until we were ready. But it has definitely been a journey, just like all of the restaurants throughout the United States, throughout the world, in fact, trying to navigate through what the new normal looks like. And I'm hoping this new normal doesn't stay the normal, but trying to figure out what you have to do, how you change your operations, going from, using reusable menus to having to do disposable menus, not using salt and pepper shakers, but using disposable salt and pepper shakers. It has definitely been interesting. And for my restaurant in particular, we do a lot of tableside service. We make our sangria tableside. We make our mojitos tableside. We do our famous 1905 salad tableside. And we had to stop doing that for a long time, which was then ultimately affecting the experience our customers were getting when they were coming to our restaurants. So happily, we brought back a lot of the tableside work a month ago, which when our customers come in, they say, I like it. It feels good. It feels familiar. It's making them feel normal. When many people come to Florida, they're like, it doesn't even feel like COVID's here. It's here. And I think I'm very proud to say that the way our restaurants are handling it is the best way we can. We're still social distancing. We're still not 100% capacity. It's about making sure everyone that walks through our doors feels comfortable. But it has been a slow journey, but we're finally almost coming back. We see our group sales coming back, which is super exciting. So we're going to a bigger menu. So we're definitely going in the right direction.
And that's fantastic to hear. You're really leading by example for the other restaurants who are still feeling the restrictions, that better things are on the horizon. So it's great to hear that, you're back in that place and hopefully back to the normal or the new normal very, very soon.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully. Any advice for your fellow restaurateurs, everyone watching, moving forward with the pandemic and, returning back to hopefully going full force?
I mean, I think we're all going through this struggle together in one way or another. I think it's important that we always maintain our focus on our employees, because without our employees, you're lost. And then of course our customers, because without our customers, we're nothing. We have to stay positive, look towards the future, know that there are better, brighter times ahead, and just keep on doing what we're doing, giving great customer service, and people are going to continue to come back.
Of course. And are all of your staff currently back, or are we still in the process of?
We brought everybody back. So we furloughed probably about 90% of our employees. We kept all of our general managers and our chefs and quite a few of our assistant managers. As soon as we opened the doors, we brought everybody back. We found a lot of people didn't want to come back. They were still staying away because they were still nervous. And just like I think everybody else in the industry right now, we're having a hard time finding staff. We're only, we're a fraction of what our employees should be at in all of our locations. So we're almost finding it hard to operate because we don't have enough employees. So we are eager to hire, front of the house, back of the house. We want to be able to go full force and get that great product out to everyone.
Of course, and that's great to hear for aspiring chefs and industry workers as well, to hear that there are a lot of positions available moving forward. So that will be, really great news for them to hear. So thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us today and sharing some information about your restaurant and the impacts of COVID and some advice for us moving forward.
Thank you. We feel honored to be a part of DiRōNA and feel honored to be included in this awesome day.
I am thrilled to have joining us now Chef Bruno Serato of Anaheim White House Restaurant. Chef, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for DiRōNA Day. We would love to have a review on your past year and any challenges that you might have overcome at the restaurant.
My name is Chef Bruno Serato. I'm the proprietor of Anaheim White House Restaurant, and also the founder of Katarina's Club, which is my charity. And I own the White House Restaurant since 1987, a long time ago.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Bruno. That's wonderful. And what are some of the challenges that you've experienced over the past year and a half with COVID?
Well, the challenge that I got the last year and a half because of COVID was pretty big. From one day to another one, they shut us down completely. And you don't know what your life will be after that. It was very big disaster for me because I lost my restaurant 4 years ago with a fire, destroyed everything, closed for 2 years, just reopened a year and a half before COVID, and I just started to come back on my feet and shut down completely. It was a disaster. But I did not panic. I tried to analyze the situation to see what can happen. After a few months to be shut down completely, I was lucky enough to get the first PPP loan to keep going. And after that, they reopened the door. When we reopened the door, we were, okay, well, maybe this COVID will be over. And we started again, working 15 hours a day like every restaurateur does. But here again, they shut us down completely, the in dining. But they let us operate outdoor dining. I was lucky enough that I have a huge property. I'm located right here in Orange County, South California. And I have 1 acre where my restaurant stands on it. The night they shut us down completely in dining, I asked my crew to move all the table in the garden. I had over 100 reservations that night. At 5 p.m. is when they told us, must close immediately. Put all the table outdoor. I did extremely well. I had a great summer, one of the best one ever. Keep a CDC guideline, get 6 feet away table from each other. No tablecloth, no things on it. I bought a UV light for each dining room to put on at nighttime. I got a UV light on every air conditioned filter with UV lighted. And I also have a UV light box where I put all my silverware. And have the crew clean every single item in the restaurant before we open the door and doing the change of the table. My first thing was the safety issue. I didn't care if I had customer or not, was make sure that the safety issue was there. I want to make sure that my crew, number one, was working in a safety environment. Customer number two, who some were still afraid to go out, but they want to go out, outdoor dining, and myself. I think the health department said I was one of the top restaurants in South California who was taking care of the safety issue as a priority. And I'm proud of that, but I had to. And I recommend a lot of the restaurants to follow my step. But what happened in December shut us down outdoor dining again, which honestly I thought was the most dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. Why? Because when they shut down the outdoor dining of a restaurant, people during Christmas time start to do party at their own house. Windows are closed, doors are closed. That means the virus expansion was worse. Matter of fact, the spike was worse in December and beginning of January than ever because every restaurant outdoor was closed. I'm not a politician, but who took care of the decision was in a very wrong status of mind. I mean, we suffer the Christmas, as you know, Christmas time for restaurant business, the busiest month of the year. But my second luck is that I got the second PPP loan. And the second PPP loan keep me going still this day of age. And when we start to reopen outdoor and again, business start to come back up. They let us 25% in dining, and just recently 50% in dining. As you know, Orange County virus went down very good ways. I believe then after you go through this huge challenge to open, closing, you can go through everything in life. I mean, honestly, as like I say, it was difficult to take, but I'm a very strong person, and I had to take the decision 10 minutes time, table in, table out, you know. And here we are, still open the door. Still, we are survivor. Restaurateur, chef are survivor. Everybody think we are rich and famous. Famous, yeah. Rich, not really. If I'm not one of those famous chefs who make millions, but most of the majority of chef restaurateur are not a millionaire, and I'm not one of them either.
Well, I think your positive attitude makes such a difference in the outcome and the result of your restaurant in particular. So are there things that you've changed now that you think will carry through to post-pandemic that will really help your restaurant as well?
Well, the change I've been doing, beside keep doing what I was doing the last 30 years, the outdoor dining has been the biggest positive things that I've done in 30 years. I find myself, as an Italian, when we go for dinner in Italy, you love to eat outdoor. You don't like to eat indoor when the sunshine is out. California, never want to do that. I never understood why. At the beginning, I was putting table outside. No, it's too hot. No, it's too cold. Now everybody likes to be outdoor. I mean, I created Italy in Orange County. Beautiful garden, beautiful table. I have a huge tent for the winter time when it's cold, but on the summertime, I put umbrella for the sunshine. It's just beautiful. I feel like when I walk now, then I walk in Italy. That was the new creation, to recreate it yourself, to reinvent it yourself, to make customers come back. As a matter of fact, I see more customers, the regular, coming back more often now because they love the outdoors so much. That it was a huge impact to be positive for the business. Obviously, now we wait for the rest of the business because my rest is close to Disneyland and all the hotel. But the last year and a half, everything has been empty. I mean, I had to survive with my local. My local business always be a big part of my business, and thank God I have that. Every hotel is closed, Disneyland is closed. I mean, you don't get not even one customer from them. I mean, to be much closer relationship with your local business and bring the customer coming back more often than normal. Yeah.
So currently, what are the restrictions on your restaurant at the moment? Are you just open for outside dining then currently?
Now, currently, the new status of restaurateur in South California, we are capable to do 50% in dining as last week. Before that was 25%, and before that was nothing. But like I mentioned earlier, because of the outdoor dining, I had 25, 30 tables to the side. I didn't worry much. If I got 30 table filled, my business is still doing good. I mean, now I have an advantage. Not only have a 50% in dining, I still have my outside dining that I'm going to keep forever. And I can do large number of customers. I do 2 seating early and later because I don't want a crowd to be together for the CDC guideline also. And now I'm so far so good. Just keep doing that way. We're going to be off the hook very soon.
Hopefully. Well, it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job, Chef Bruno. And one more thing that I'd love to hear you tell us about is Katarina's Club, because I think that that's so important. And it's just amazing to see what you've been doing alongside combating your restaurant during COVID.
Okay, Katarina's Club. People say, what's Katarina's Club? Well, I could talk for hours, but let me try to put that on the short lines. 16 years ago, I went to a Boys Girls Club feeding a kid who didn't have dinner because live in a motel. 16 years later, we serve 5,000 meals every single day. We've been doing that for such a long time, 16 years, like I mentioned. As a matter of fact, last week, we celebrated 6 million meals served. But the last year and a half, because of COVID, that was a huge challenge. What I used to do before COVID was around 1 million meals a year. 90 locations, 30 cities right here in Orange County. But in 24 hours, they shut down completely. All the Boys Girls Club, all the school. And I had to change my program in 24 hours because we could not do huge container of pasta to the Boys Girls Club. We changed completely to do single individual pasta, wrap them up, all my crew safety, glove, mask, everything else, and deliver it outdoor or door to family. Because remember, if the children don't go to school or don't go to Boys Girls Club, they have no food at home. I mean, I changed the Katarina's Club completely. And last year, 2020, because of COVID, instead to serve 1 million meal during the year, we end up to serve 2 million meal. We double it. We do a lot of food drive distribution. I do every Monday on my restaurant. We get 400 car, 100 walk-in. Every other day, different city in Orange County. The reason also, you know, some people in Orange County say, oh, I don't care if the health department shut us down. I don't care. I'm going to keep my door open. I never did that for the fact that they want to have my restaurant shut down and to have to shut down Katarina's Club, which for me is the most important thing, was to feeding the kids during the worst time of their life. I mean, I did a lot of safety issue for Katarina's Club in my kitchen. We were able to operate it just for Katarina's Club, not the rest, like I mentioned. Yeah, we passed the 2 million meals in 1 year, and that was the huge challenge of Katarina's Club was really to change completely the system that we were doing for 15 years.
Wow. Well, that's so inspiring. And it's wonderful that you were still able to do that and putting the children first before your own restaurant. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
I think that maybe we can end off today with any advice that you may have for fellow restaurateurs and your peers, anything that will make them optimistic for the future of fine dining.
Well, to all of my restaurateur colleagues out there, chef, we never give up. We went through so many things, from the recession to 9/11, earthquake, so many things. We never give up. I mean, stay strong. Business will come back up. people love to go out for dinner. They love us. They love the restaurant. They love the chef. They love the restaurateur where they are used to go. And but one of the number one things that teach my colleague, show them then you have a safety issue in place. That is what make my restaurant suffer less than most of them, because I had a safety issue in place from the beginning, the first week. To be from Italy, I saw what happened in Italy right after China. We were the second country after China to have the spike and extremely bad. I mean, I decided to do safety issue immediately in the restaurant and the front and the back, all over the restaurant. To my colleagues, like, safety issue number one, and don't give up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Chef Bruno. Everyone at DiRōNA visiting on DiRōNA Day, and anyone who gets to see this will be so grateful for your words of wisdom. And again, thank you for everything that you do for your community and for being such a great mentor to so many people.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you, Bruno. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Ciao, ciao.
Now introducing our next guest, we have Nick DiDonato of Liberty Entertainment Group, located in Toronto, Ontario, as well as a location in Miami. Nick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, Nick, you're located in Toronto, which has had extreme impacts due to COVID. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I think Toronto has actually been one of the most affected city in North America and perhaps the world in terms of the conservative approach with respect to lockdowns and then keeping restaurants closed and the event spaces. And for our event spaces, as an example, like a Liberty Grand, which typically holds, events of thousands of people on a capacity of 5,000, that venue has been literally shut down for over a year because, there's no restaurants, there's no takeout. Our events need to be over 200 people because of the magnitude of the rooms themselves. So virtually, that event space has been closed down for a year completely. Our restaurants have been impacted, not as much in that we do have some of the delivery options and takeout options to help offset some of our costs and help continue to employ our main staff. But in the event sector, we have been devastated in terms of the impact. And Toronto in itself is probably the most locked down city in the world in terms of number of days we have lockdowns for these kind of venues.
Right. Yeah, it's been catastrophic for restaurant owners in Toronto. Now, going back to the fine dining areas that you're involved in, such as the Blue Blood Steakhouse located in Casa Loma. So that's been closed down for how long now?
Well, the Blue Blood Steakhouse was closed for, I think it's over 180 days, if not more, in terms of complete lockdown. For inside service, we've been almost closed down for a year. So we did have a little bit of a reprieve in the summer to allow patio dining. But other than that, we've been pretty well closed, and we were surviving on takeout. And, for a fine dining restaurant, which we would never have takeout, we had to pivot drastically for Blue Blood to come up with a concept and an ability to provide fine quality, high-end food on a delivery service. So we did pivot, did manage to do that, and at least that's supporting our team.
Of course. And after speaking with a lot of owners and operators of DiRōNA awarded restaurants, everyone would agree that fine dining takeout is just simply not what fine dining restaurants are meant to do. Although it's been an aid, it's really not showing exactly what the restaurant is meant to display through the overall experience. So hopefully, as we discussed before we started our interview, that there is hope that reopening in Toronto is upon us. And when that happens, any exciting new news for the Blue Blood Steakhouse in Casa Loma?
Well, we believe that when people are able to go out, they will go out. It's evident when we open our patios that they're full, and they're not only full on weekends at that point, they're full throughout the week, obviously with limited capacity and more distance. So I really believe as soon as we're able to open, people will come back and know that we are a safe environment, because restaurants are probably safer than most other areas, because we're mandated with certain regulations. Even after the pandemic may be over, we'll still have heightened health regulations, and we will implement them because we're our business we're entrepreneurs who want to continue having business, and we cannot fail by having a health inspector giving us a violation. So as a result, 100% of the rules are going to be met. We will have whatever social distancing is required. We will have plexiglass to divide people in areas. We will have masks and sanitary equipment. We will do that because our downfall would be a health inspector coming in after we're open and giving us a violation and shutting us down. That would be a crisis in itself. And so people should be able to expect every restaurant to follow the rules and be the safest environment you can possibly get.
Of course. Of course. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the history of Blue Blood Steakhouse. So for those viewing today that might not be familiar with Casa Loma, can you tell us about the history there? And, it's such a great idea to open a steakhouse in Casa Loma. Can you illustrate the decision-making process there?
Well, Casa Loma is one of the most iconic venues in Canada, historic venues. It's a castle, replica of some of the castles in Europe, and Sir Henry Pellet built it in 1911 as his personal home. And it's been a tourist attraction for close to 100 years now. And it was mainly geared towards the typical tourism who want to see heritage venues and architecture and so on. When we took over Casa Loma in 2014, one of our mandates as operators of Casa Loma is to engage the Toronto community. Well, Torontonians would come to Casa Loma and may come with their kids for a Christmas program, or come to visit the castle when they have guests from out of the country, but they wouldn't come back to Casa Loma because there's no need to come back once you've seen the heritage site. Well, a restaurant will give the people an opportunity to come to Casa Loma on a regular basis, any given weekend, to experience the beautiful castle in itself, the incredible interiors, which are unique in every way, and to be able to enjoy a fine dining experience in a castle. And that was one of the ways to engage Torontonians to visit Casa Loma, and has been tremendously successful because restaurants are about food mostly, and I agree with that 100%, the quality of food and execution and delivery. But we as an organization believe that it's a complete package. It's the environment you're in, the aesthetics you're in, the music that's being played, the quality of food, the level of service, attention to detail. And the Casa Loma Blue Blood Steakhouse gave us an incredible opportunity to be able to do that. And we've won several design awards for the castle. Though it's a restaurant designed in a heritage site, it's been named the top restaurant in North America last year in terms of its design, because of the juxtaposition of some contemporary elements in a heritage property.
Exactly. And it is, like I said, such a great idea. And we are hopeful that we will be up and running soon in Toronto. And as someone new to Toronto, I do look so forward to experiencing Blue Blood Steakhouse and everything that it encompasses. Now, I'd like to finish on a positive note today, and I'd love to discuss foodball with you briefly here. Now, you're the perfect example of someone who does so much to give for the community, while also, being so impacted through the pandemic. I understand that foodball began in 2019, and you did have to, put a pause on it previously. It's such a shame because it's such a positive thing for the industry. Can you tell us a little bit about foodball?
Well, foodball was a concept that is started in terms of a fundraiser. For us, I committed to Mount Sinai Hospital to create a fundraiser, something that was significant and something that could be repeated on an annual basis. And the concept was basically saying, bringing chefs from around the world to Toronto so people can experience the world cuisine, and also bring chefs from across Canada to work with those people from around the world to showcase how well we Canadians stand up with the world palate and the restaurants and great chefs of the world. It was a phenomenal success our first year. We had over 50 chefs from around the world in Canada. We raised over $800,000 in our first year for Mount Sinai, which went directly to Mount Sinai. And the food ball was a multi-tier type of event. The main event, which was attended by over 1,000 people, would have bites from presented from each of the chefs from around the world. So food stations throughout Liberty Grand, and it's a 100,000 square feet facility. So you can imagine how much room we can give the chefs and the people. And so that was component one, which was sold out very quickly. And the other one was the in-home dinners from some of the sponsors of Mount Sinai, where we would have 20 guests paying, I think it was $5,000 a person, but to actually work with a Canadian chef and a world noted chef at the dinner, collaborating to create an extraordinary dinner for those people. It worked out incredibly well. We were ready to do our second one, but as you can imagine, with COVID and the restrictions of travel, the food ball concept was no longer available or feasible for us. We will bring it back because it was such an amazing success. And it was also so well received by the chefs coming from around the world, because not only does it support Toronto in terms of the culinary field and support a hospital, but it supports tourism because it allows chefs from around the world to see what a great culinary city Toronto is. And most of the chefs were so blown away with what we have to offer and the local scene of restaurants and the quality of food our chefs presented, that it was a great opportunity all the way around.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic event, Nick. And I'm sure that your efforts right out of the gate are going to go to getting your staff and your restaurants up and running. But we hope that this happens soon so you can get back to doing amazing things such as food ball for your community and around the world.
Okay, well, listen, we will do that because, we will come back. We'll come back stronger than ever. And, the part of the core of our philosophy in our organization is, we're fortunate enough and we will be fortunate to recover. And when we do, we should give back. And, Mount Sinai and food ball will be one of those things we give back to very quickly when we can.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And, our hearts go out to you, Nick, as you recover from the pandemic, and wishing you and your family all the best.
Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you on the other side of this.
So excited to introduce our next speaker today. So we're now going to do an interview with Emily Ferrari from Maritana Restaurant at the Don Cesar Hotel, which is located in St. Pete Beach, Florida. So thank you so much for joining us today, Emily.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So we're going to get a little background information about the Maritana Restaurant, which actually recently underwent some renovations. So It did. So do you mind giving us a little timeline there on the renovations and how it kind of impacted how, with COVID, how the restaurant operated?
Yeah. So we are very blessed to have a very, very gracious management company and owner, and they're putting a lot of money into the hotel. So they're actually renovating the whole property, and it started with our ice cream shop and then went into my restaurant next and our lobby bar following that. So we renovated a little over a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now. And they completely redid the entire dining room, opened it up, made it this beautiful Gatsby kind of feel, but very modern and very just inviting and comfortable. Brought in a lot of decor and things like that that remind you of the Maritana Opera, which is where we got our wonderful name. And yeah, that happened, like I said, about a year and a half, 2 years ago now almost. And we were closed for about 4 to 6 months for that renovation. And then reopened right before Thanksgiving in 2019. And then a COVID hit in March of 2020, and we had to close, unfortunately. My restaurant, not the hotel. Thankfully, we were very, very blessed to be able to keep the hotel open since we have a private beach and everything. We just followed all the restrictions that we needed to and made sure to keep everybody, our guests, our employees, everyone as safe as possible. And then we finally reopened this past October in 2020. So we've been open for almost 6 months now.
Well, that's great news. So as far as the hotel goes and bringing in customers to the restaurant, have you noticed a decline in tourism, and has that impacted the restaurant?
I think for us, because we are located on St. Pete Beach, it's actually been the exact opposite. The Don Cesar is very lucky to own our beach right outside. So it's a private beach, which means that we can go ahead and be able to enforce the COVID restrictions. But when they put in place the restrictions to close public beaches, because we were able to limit the amount of people that we had in our beach and make them socially distanced and have all those restrictions in place to keep them safe, we were able to stay opened, especially since, like I said, we own our beach. So it allowed the hotel to be able to stay open as well, because we were able to still bring guests in. And we did have to go ahead and limit staffing, and we limited just, because we don't want so many people in hotels, so many people around with all the close interactions that you get when you are fully staffed. So we did have to restrict that. So that's why my restaurant was closed. But we were able to go ahead and still bring people in and have like a grab and go kind of scenario out of our ice cream shop. And we did that for at least until the restrictions started to be lifted, and we were able to get, good safety precautions and everything in place for reopening. And then when my restaurant reopened, because we'd already been opened with one of our other restaurants, we were able to go ahead and have all those safety precautions and everything in place. So it was kind of like an immediate, hey, you're open? Great, here you go.
Perfect.
So it's been incredibly busy. Last month was actually a record month for us, for not only the Maritana, but also for the hotel, for business levels.
Wow. So you've really been able to actually thrive through the whole pandemic, which is fantastic to hear. Any specific challenges that you can think of off the top of your head that you've experienced?
On a personal one, for me, it was missing cooking my food. Since I thought Maritana is a fine dining restaurant, and unfortunately we did have to close for right under a year, it was a very big change for me not to be able to go ahead and play with food the way that I was for so long. But in all honesty, in retrospect, it was kind of beneficial because it allowed me to be able to have time to refocus and re-hone in. And I think my food's better than ever for it now. On a hotel front, I think our biggest challenges were just being able to keep everyone safe. Unfortunately, every once in a blue moon, you do get those guests that don't care about the restrictions and things like that. And making sure that everybody can just stay safe, not only our guests, but our employees. When you have some guests like that, and when you have, just a pandemic in general, it makes it very difficult. But we have, like I said, a fantastic management company. I have great bosses above me, and they took the restrictions that the government put in for us and then some to make sure that everybody has stayed safe and healthy, and everything that we can do, we are still doing. So it's one of those things that lets you be able to go ahead and very much appreciate where you're at.
Great. No, that's fantastic. And Chef Emily, it sounds like you're back now creating again and doing exactly what you love in the kitchen as a chef.
That's for sure. Our reviews are better than ever, so I'm hoping my food's as good as the reviews.
Oh, well, I'm sure it is, and I hope to be able to visit you at some point soon.
Me too.
Yes, so I spoke with the National Restaurant Association, and we discussed a little bit about the scholarship program and how there was a decline in the applications for the scholarships for aspiring chefs and anyone aspiring to get into the industry.
Yeah.
Now we're back at an increase, which is fantastic.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, it took about a year off, but now it looks like as things begin to transition open again, there's more interest and more hope in the industry in general. So for anyone who might be watching this that is interested in becoming a chef, would you mind giving us a little bit of background information about how old you were when you came into the industry and how you came about becoming a chef?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm Italian. My last name is Ferrari, as you can tell. So I always grew up in the kitchen. And my family is just I mean, we're Italian, we're big, we're loud, we love to eat all the time. So when I was about 15 or 16 or so was my first ever restaurant job. I was just looking for an after school job, and I found a job as a hostess at like a little mom and pop restaurant joint. And their dishwasher actually called out like 2 days after I had started. So they asked if instead of me hostessing, if I would mind running the dish machine. So I did. And since they got a little pop for dinner, and like I said, it was a mom and pop place, it was literally the chef and he had one cook with him. So he asked if I could jump on and make salads in the middle of my shift. And I enjoyed it. So they started putting me in the kitchen on the pantry. And yeah, I think I was 15 or 16 years old. And then a couple years after that, well, I was only there for maybe 6 months or so, and I got other restaurant jobs and things of that nature and just kind of progressed. And actually about 2 years after that, I started at a catering company when I was 18 as their lead supervisor, just being able to go ahead and show. It was a small little sandwich shop up front, and then we did catering off-site, events up to about 250 people was all we could really manage. So I was in charge of helping with all the events and specific events on the schedule. And after about 6 months of doing that, their executive chef left. So they promoted me. And that was my first ever executive chef job. So I've kind of been in it ever since. So got into the restaurant side and went to culinary school and kind of have loved it ever since then. Worked at a bunch of fine dining restaurants, a bunch of mom and pop shops, and a bunch of hotels. But here I am now, 4 years at the Maritana as the head chef, and I'm loving it.
Oh, great. Yes, I find that's very common in the restaurant industry, just kind of starting out as a job and working your way up, and now you're a head chef. So that's fantastic.
We like to call it trial by fire.
Yes, absolutely. And so as far as any aspiring chefs, can you give them any advice when, deciding to move into this industry with things like COVID happening? Why should they still, not give up on their dream of becoming a head chef?
Well, I think if it's a dream, it's something that you always have to work for. And this is one of those industries that you have to always prove yourself in, because it's a hard dream to get. Not a lot of people make it. But with that being said, it is one of the most fulfilling things you'll ever do, because you don't go to work to work. You go to work because you love what you do, and you get to experience that and express that every day, and you get to give that gift to other people through your food. And it's also an industry unlike any other, because you get to constantly be a student. You can always learn and grow, and there's always new things to experience, and it makes it fun and intriguing. And we're a weird group of misfits that just work and fit together, and you're never going to be able to get that type of experience anywhere else. So my best advice would be just to remember that and stay humble, because the minute you think that you're done learning something, you're going to get smacked down and realize you don't know anything. So as long as you can go ahead and remember that and work towards your dream, I mean, the sky's the limit.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Chef Emily. I'm inspired by that. So I know so many upcoming chefs will feel the same. So that concludes our interview for today. So thank you so much for your time. Again, we really appreciate hearing your story and a little bit of background information about how you're making out at your restaurant.
Thank you very much. It was nice meeting you.
So happy to introduce our next speaker today. Welcome, Phillip Barnett, all the way from Bermuda. So he is the owner of Barracuda Grill, and welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Of course. I would love to hear about all the other restaurants, including Barracuda Grill, and a little information about these restaurants that you have in Bermuda.
Yep. Under the umbrella of Island Restaurant Group is, of course, Barracuda Grill, which is our fine dining outlet. Underneath that, we have the oldest licensed establishment in Hamilton, our capital in Bermuda, and that's called the Hog Penny, which, an interesting story, is literally the original inspiration for the Bull and Finch pub in Boston, which many people will actually know as the Cheers pub. So it's always nice to know that you were the genesis, not only to a great pub in another country, but also an amazing TV show. And then we also have our upscale casual establishment, contemporary casual, which is Pickled Onion. And that's probably one of the busier, well-known restaurants, if not one of the most well-known restaurants in Bermuda. Underneath that, we have our newest concept, which is a casual coffee house called Brew, which we feature our own Dockyard Brewing beers at, because we have a microbrewery as well. And then also our brew pub, the Frog Penny, the Frog Penny, the Frog and Onion, which is up at Dockyard. Our cruise ship port, which of course has been very quiet over the last year because there's no cruise ships currently on the high seas. So we're just hanging in there up there, but we're still brewing great beer.
Fantastic. So you mentioned it's been really quiet, obviously a decline in tourism. Can you kind of illustrate for us how the island's been impacted, and more specifically your restaurants?
Yeah, we're actually just have gone, well, not just 2 weeks have gone into our second lockdown, and almost to the day a year ago when we went into our first lockdown. So we had a week of stay-at-home orders. All restaurants, all businesses were closed except for grocery stores, and obviously, the hospital and doctor's offices. And we're just coming out of it. We've been on for the last week, takeout only, which I'm sure every other restaurateur who's had to deal with that understands. Is everybody thinks it's going to save your life, and all it does is prolong the misery, but you do your best you can. And so we're doing takeout only, and then we're hoping in another week's time to be able to convert to outdoor dining, which is a little easier in Bermuda. Although Barracuda Grill is only an indoor dining restaurant. So we've actually been closed at Barracuda Grill since March the 30th. And our staff, we've been able to use some of our staff at other locations, but we're desperate to get back open at Barracuda Grill.
Of course. And so have you been doing takeout or carry out all the way through COVID through all the restaurants then, or Barracuda Grill's been closed?
Yeah, and people in the fine dining sector will totally understand this, that our food isn't made to be put into a styrofoam or cardboard box and sent home. And as creative as you can try to be to deconstruct it, to allow people to do it at home, the reality is people don't go to a fine dining restaurant because they can do it at home. They go to a fine dining restaurant because they can't do it at home, or it would take all day for them to prepare a meal if they were to do the quality and then add the service and the wine selections. They're coming to fine dining establishments for the experience, for the entertainment value of it. And so we haven't been able to do any sort of takeout, anything that really worked. We tried to, our Corporation of Hamilton, which runs the city that we're in, they tried to facilitate outdoor dining, but we're a second floor restaurant. So even that was difficult to try and get down onto the street to serve people on the street. So, we were lucky for a while there because Bermuda going first in the first lockdown, we started exiting it in June. And by the middle of June, we were actually back to indoor dining, albeit 6 foot distance, all the rest of the things that we've all had to deal with. But we were able to have indoor dining pretty much for over half a year. Things started to get serious again in December, so we lost a lot of our Christmas trade. And then we were able to survive January, February, and then of course the March lockdown. With Barracuda Grill, in Bermuda, as much as tourism is a huge part of our business, the biggest part of our business is actually international business. And that is reinsurance companies, trust companies that are located and domiciled in Bermuda. All their workers are here. So what you end up happening is in the great times, you have all the brokers and underwriters coming to Bermuda to have their meetings, directors have their meetings. And of course, we all know that the best place to do deals is over dinner. So they would hit us up for dinner or lunch, and for many years, I think out of the last 10 years, 6 out of the last 10 years, we've won in Bermuda best place for a power lunch. So we're well known amongst our business clientele as the place to go to for an excellent contemporary meal featuring seafood that's expertly served and gives them the privacy to be able to do those literally billion-dollar deals. So it's quite the place to be.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. So that being said, as I'm sure you can agree with me, tourism will be a slow return. it's great to hear that you do have those business clients in Bermuda, that when you are able to reopen indoor dining, you'll be able to, get right back into it. And I hope you have a very smooth and quick transition back into the restaurant.
Thank you very much, from your lips to the big man's ears. So.
Of course, of course. And any advice that you would have, like you've very similar to where we're at in Toronto, you've been impacted for a very long time. Any advice that you can give to anyone who might be watching this that can really relate to the never-ending restrictions that have been placed on the restaurants?
Well, as I say, we've been teased, and in fact, to be honest, up until about a month ago, we actually thought we were on the downward slide, and it's still looking. We're very lucky in Bermuda because we're actually a UK overseas territory. So the United Kingdom has been sending us vaccines to the equal value of what the UK population has been getting. So as of yesterday, our numbers are that we have 53% of our population of our vaccine, of the population that are able to have a vaccine, have actually had a single vaccine. We're 37% with a double vaccine. I mean, I have to admit, I'm very, very happy to say and raise my hand and say I've been fully vaccinated since March the 3rd. So, it's those things, those tangible things that are allowing us to get back, on the front foot. We're a very lucky place in that we're surrounded by 710 miles of water to the very closest landmass, which is South Carolina. So we've been able to a certain extent close our borders, and then we were able to, in a measured way, reopen them. Unfortunately, we let in the UK variant, which sort of ran rampant. But we're looking forward to even cruise ships are starting their home porting out of Bermuda, which means their passengers are going to fly into Bermuda. And we've actually made the designation, as have the cruise lines, that have said you have to be fully vaccinated to actually fly into Bermuda, and you have to be fully vaccinated to actually cruise on these ships that in some cases are literally just going to go around the island and then come back in and port at one of the ports at either end of the island, or else they're going to travel down to the Bahamas, spend a couple of days in the Bahamas, and then travel back to Bermuda for a day before they offload their passengers. And then hopefully we'll get a few of those cruise ship passengers staying for longer. The hotels are still open in Bermuda. You're actually allowed to come to Bermuda if you, with the usual testing and quarantining. And then the hotels are actually able to serve their own people staying in their hotels in their restaurants. They're still allowed indoor dining. So we're trying really hard. And so for people out there, there is light on the horizon. I always thought it was like, is it just sewer gas, or is it an actual light on the horizon? But I do think that there is light on the horizon, and we've experienced this. There is a lot of pent up demand, and when it gets unleashed, there really is. People that are not restaurateurs have a lot of money in their pockets that they've not been spending, and we've certainly seen that when they do come out and they do spend, the sky's the limit. So as long as we can get this, we can all get vaccinated, as long as we don't have crazy variants spinning out of control and turning into something else that the current vaccinated population isn't protected against, I think we're going to see much better days, hopefully in the next month or two.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for your optimism, and, really just taking any sign of progress and celebrating it, I think is so important. So I'm really happy to hear that you're very close to hopefully returning, back to a great place at your restaurant and just the island in general.
Thank you. Yeah, we're certainly looking forward to that.
Great. Well, us too. I hope we follow quickly in your footsteps.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time, Phillip. We really appreciate it. And I know, your fellow restaurateurs will really appreciate hearing your story and, hearing all your optimism. So thanks again.
It's been my pleasure. Best wishes for our industry, and best wishes to everybody as they slowly get to open back up and do the job that we love doing.
Okay, our next interview today is going to be with Chef Jasper Mirabile Jr. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chef Jasper.
I'm honored here to talk to everyone, and believe me, our history with DiRōNA goes back many, many years. So for you to ask me to be here, I'm very grateful.
And yeah, your family has always been great supporters of DiRōNA. In fact, we'll have many photos shown throughout the course of DiRōNA Day, many of which your parents are in and attending DiRōNA events. Can we start with having you tell us how important DiRōNA has been to your family historically?
Well, I'll be honest with you. DiRōNA, with our family goes back from the beginning. But even more than that, back to the days of Holiday Awards and Bob Balzer. And I remember my father from the beginning just waiting for that award to come in the mail and to find out that he received the award, because he told me at one time, he said, getting the award back in the 1970s was like winning a Super Bowl for restaurants. And to be chosen and to be amongst, some of the greatest restaurateurs in the country, that's an honor that you've reached your highest achievement right there. And then when DiRōNA started, and my father was there from the beginning also, he came back to Kansas City and was just so excited about the award and what they were going to do. But more than anything, he was very worried about the inspections, and it was going to be very, very rigorous. And and going through the books and seeing what we had to get done at our restaurant to make sure that we achieved this award. And the first year the award came out and we received it, and we were very, very fortunate.
Fortunate, but well-deserved, obviously. And speaking, of the best restaurants in the world and in North America, we're lucky, Chef Jasper, to be speaking to you while you're sitting in Jasper's in Kansas City. And I understand this is not the only location of Jasper's in Kansas City.
Oh, no, we only have, this is our second location now.
This is your second location now. Congratulations. And so everyone viewing today comes from a different part of North America. Can you tell us how you've been impacted through the past year and a half with the pandemic and kind of where Jasper is at now?
So March 15th last year, when we got the notice from our Kansas City mayor that we had to close the restaurant, was a total shock. I thought for sure that we could at least stay open and do carry out. But for 30 days, we were closed. And Leonard, myself, my nephew, and my great nephew, who run the restaurants also, got together and we said, you know what? We have to make it through this. We have to figure out a way. It's only going to be for a couple of weeks, guys, so don't worry about it. Ouch. Who knew? But more than that, we had a team of 48 people here working here at Jasper's. And I had to worry about them, and I had to worry about, families, because I have cooks who've been here for 37 years, 35 years, 32 years, bartenders. One bartender served my wife her first drink when she was 18. I'm 58 years old, guys. So, hostesses and servers. I was worried. I was scared. I didn't know what to think. Leonard always looks on the other side and figures out a way that we can make it through it. And that's what we did. We had to figure out, what are we going to do differently here at the restaurants? First of all, we started with the carry out. We did carry out, but as you know, some Italian food just doesn't travel well. And we have two restaurants under one roof here. We have the Marco Polo's Italian Market and Deli, and then the restaurants. But we made it through it, catering and still delivering. We started with the delivery, and more than anything, our customers came back. They kept calling and telling us, we're ordering tonight, we're ordering this weekend, we want something for next week. They wanted to make sure that they kept us open and tipping the employees. You would not believe. They wanted to make sure that our servers were taken care of. Some people coming in and saying, here's a couple $100, put it into the fund for your servers. So more than anything, we did our best. Our servers, our bartenders, the cooks, the busboys, the dishwashers. But more than anything, we owe them a lot. But our customers supporting us for this past, 14 months rather, it has been something else. And I am just overwhelmed that we're going like we are, and we're back. So thank God, we're very fortunate.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear that you've had so much support, Chef Jasper. So are you currently back open to full capacity, or where is Jasper sitting now?
So May 1st, Jasper's and all of Kansas City went back to May 1st. Oh, take that back. I'm sorry. On May 1st, Jasper's went back to full capacity, like all of Kansas City bars and restaurants. Masks are still mandatory in the restaurant, walking through, but not sitting down while you're dining. So really, we're back. But more than anything, customers are back like I've never seen before. I told my brother this could be the biggest Mother's Day in the history of restaurants. People want to go out. They want to spend money. They want to talk to people. They want to be around people. And they're not sitting for 90 minutes because we have the computers and everything tell us how long our customers sit for and what to expect, this and that. Forget about it. People are sitting 2.5 hours. They don't want to get up from their table because they haven't been together in so long.
Exactly, and a taste for that fine dining experience. I mean, I'm so happy to hear that you're back to that place, and it's inspiring for, other restaurant owners and anyone else working in the industry who's just not quite there yet. It's great to hear that, it's coming, and when it does come, it's going to come back stronger than ever.
Believe me, it is. And the people, I mean, I talk to people every day, and the first thing they tell me, since we're, an older, iconic restaurant, been here for 68 years, people come up, they say, this is the first place we've been out, and we had to come out to Jasper's. We've been supporting you during the pandemic, getting to go and carry out. But one thing that they all tell me, and this is something I'm very proud of, we didn't change one thing here at the restaurant. We didn't take a menu item off. We didn't cut our menu down. We didn't make a new menu. We did everything the same as the day that we closed on March 15th of 2020. So when we came back, I wanted people to know that things may have changed around the country, but not at Jasper's.
And that's great. Fine dining will remain constant. And I think that that's wonderful that you were able to maintain that straight through the pandemic. And obviously it's paid off. So that's wonderful. Now I'll finish up today with our interview. Any advice that you have, for restaurants who just aren't quite to your place yet, and as far as capacity goes, and they're still, really feeling those restrictions, what would you say to those restaurant owners and industry staff?
Well, open up for lunch if you can. We're open lunch and dinner. Open up earlier. Perhaps if you open up at 5 o'clock, perhaps maybe you need to open up at 4 o'clock. This way you can get an extra seating in there. Also, patio dining is very, very big around here. So we have a lot of patios, outdoor seating if you can. But let the guests know that you're happy to have them back. That's more than anything right now. And make them feel comfortable when they walk in. At our restaurant, in between our booths, we actually put in plexiglass to separate the customers. So they walk in and they feel comfortable. Now, I know a lot of people, have gotten the vaccine, but still people a little, they walk in, they're kind of a little afraid. Make them feel at ease. And at Jasper's, the minute they sit down, we instruct our servers, the host, everyone, welcome them. Thank them for coming back to the restaurant. Get them a cocktail right away or a glass of wine. In the restaurant industry, we call that a pacifier. But get them in the mood to dine and to sit back and relax and take care of them and be grateful that those people are back in the seats at our restaurants. And if you got to do things a little differently, then you're going to have to. If you have to make different buys with your suppliers, then go ahead, because prices are not cheap right now and they're going up even more. And I think customers are understanding that you know what, hey, we have to charge a little more, but hey, we're getting the value. We're not taking advantage of the customers. We didn't raise our prices 40% because no one else is open or something like that. Just be honest and be fair with your customers. That's more than anything. And they will come back. I guarantee you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, for your wise words and for taking the time to connect with us and be a part of DiRōNA Day. It's so valuable to your fellow restaurateurs. So thank you so much, Chef Jasper. We really do appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I am, again, honored to be here with everyone. And I wish everyone in the restaurant industry, along with all of the DiRōNA winners, the best and continued success.
And we're honored to have you. Thank you so much.
Grazie, grazie. Ciao.
Greetings and welcome to our webinar, Decoupling COVID-19 Practices, presented on behalf of Ecolab in partnership with Distinguished Restaurants of North America. Today we're going to walk through the journey we've been on over the past year or so, highlighting some of the novel infection prevention methods we've deployed, while underscoring some best practices to answer the question, what should we keep and what can we leave behind as we move toward the new normal? My name is Kaycee Struhler, and I'm a Principal Technical Account Specialist in our R&D function at Ecolab. My job is to provide technical expertise to some of Ecolab's largest global customers. Over the past year, I've taken a primary role in consulting on product and procedure recommendations related to COVID-19, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you all today. Some of you may be familiar with Ecolab, while others less so. We have been in the business of cleaning for 98 years, and we're truly a trusted partner at nearly 3 million customer locations across the world. We are the global leader in water, hygiene, and infection prevention solutions and services, and we work every day to make the world cleaner, safer, and healthier. We do this by helping businesses around the world operate efficiently, optimize their water use, keep their food safe, and environments clean. So without further ado, let's get started. The food service industry has been challenged in truly exceptional ways over the course of the pandemic. In an effort to mitigate risks associated with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, restaurants have had to adapt quickly, adopt new technologies, adjust labor levels, alter their service model and menus, and ultimately enhance their hygiene practices in response to swiftly evolving guidance from public health authorities. What we initially thought would be a few weeks of closed signs and empty dining rooms quickly turned into some innovative solutions to remain afloat. To retain traffic and continue generating revenue, restaurants pivoted in a big way. Some fabricated touchless pickup windows. Others urged physical distancing, while remaining social, of course, through the use of giant inner tubes and plastic dining bubbles. All of this change meant that restaurants had to stay tuned in to the latest public health guidance and ride the waves of local restrictions. Many of you likely closed, reopened, and then closed again before later reopening. Some of you may have kept your dining areas closed while serving customers through new takeout apps or makeshift drive-thrus. But all of you were forced to master new public health guidelines and meet heightened customer expectations. Luckily, as the campaign to vaccinate the U.S. population accelerates, optimism for a return to normal grows. Nearly 30% of the population is fully vaccinated, and more than 40% have received at least one dose of a vaccine. All but a few states have loosened restrictions, allowing restaurants to operate at 50% or more capacity. For all of these reasons, restaurants are forecasted to have a sharp rebound in Q2, peaking in late June or early July. This is incredible news for an industry that was hit so hard. As things rebound, how do you ensure that you can keep your customers happy and healthy and your doors open? Well, a primary way is to remain focused on hygiene. Recent surveys have shown that the top consideration for restaurant goers is that the places they eat are clean and sanitary. This consideration is more important to patrons than either the location of the restaurant or even the taste of the food. We've now set the stage for our current environment, which is growing increasingly vaccinated and more eager by the day to get out and return to normal. With this in mind, we cannot lose sight of our guiding principles, public health and food safety. Your customers are depending on you to move forward with the same heightened awareness you had early on in the pandemic. Public health, defined as the science and art of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through organized efforts and informed choices. And food safety, which refers to the conditions and practices that preserve the quality of food to prevent contamination and foodborne illness, are both predicated on the principles of infection prevention. The basic principles of infection prevention are understanding the route of transmission and establishing mitigation strategies to break the chain of infection. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. 1+ year into this pandemic, you're all likely very familiar with how SARS-CoV-2 is spread. It is transmitted very easily from person to person, most commonly during close contact, through respiratory droplets from coughing, sneezing, singing, talking, or just breathing. It can sometimes be spread by airborne transmission or through contact with contaminated surfaces. Some important ways to mitigate the risks associated with this novel virus include wearing a mask and ensuring a 6-foot physical distance from those outside of your household, in addition to many standard infection control practices like proper hand hygiene, routine cleaning and disinfection of frequently touched surfaces, and isolating when ill. Things look pretty similar when we think about something like norovirus, which happens to be the leading cause of illness and outbreaks from contaminated food in the United States. Norovirus also spreads easily and quickly from person to person, though it's typically through contaminated food, water, or surfaces. Most outbreaks occur in food service settings like a restaurant, with the source being an infected worker. In both of these instances, preventing the spread of SARS-CoV-2 and norovirus, the basic infection prevention strategies remain. So how can we leverage our COVID-19 experience to therefore enhance our food safety culture? Well, we can continue to implement enhanced hygiene as an infection prevention strategy. There are two critical components to infection prevention: personal and environmental hygiene. And when they're implemented correctly, they really are a winning combination, that 1-2 punch, if you will. Personal hygiene refers to things like hand washing, minimizing contact with people who are ill, and ensuring proper use of personal protective equipment. Environmental hygiene refers to the effective cleaning of surfaces using an appropriate product. The focus on hygiene matters because there are more than 1,400 known human pathogens, with more being discovered as science advances. A newly introduced virus can contaminate 40 to 60% of high touch points in a building in the first 2 to 4 hours after entry. Pathogens can cause significant customer challenges. For example, if someone were to fall ill after eating in your restaurant, you may take the blame. And finally, pathogenic organisms may cause staffing shortages, particularly during times like cold and flu season. So let's take a closer look at that top personal hygiene measure, hand hygiene. Hand washing has always been a best practice in food service, but there should be a renewed focus on this topic. A report published by the FDA found that 66% of quick service restaurants and 82% of full service restaurants were cited for improper hand washing. So clearly there's some room for improvement here. It's estimated that 80% of infections are transmitted by our hands, so proper hygiene must be implemented often. And the key to proper hand hygiene is soap and water. But for those instances where soap and water may not be available, hand sanitizer could be an acceptable alternative. Effective and consistent personal hygiene practices among your employees is critical to reducing the likelihood of cross-contamination and foodborne illness. Proper hand washing can make a tremendous impact on both food safety and public health. So now we've covered the first part of that sanitation equation, personal hygiene. Let's dive into the second part, environmental hygiene. We know that food safety remains a challenge in food service. 20% of outbreaks are due to contaminated surfaces and associated with inadequate cleaning. As a matter of fact, the second most cited violation is food contact surfaces not being properly cleaned and sanitized. One of the best ways to mitigate risks associated with pathogens like SARS-CoV-2 and norovirus is to ensure that proper environmental hygiene practices are followed. This is one area where I've seen obvious improvement over the past year. We really have moved the needle, but I still think there's plenty of work to be done. For example, how many of you have noticed signs promising that the location you're entering is frequently cleaned and sanitized? I bet a lot of you. How many of you have watched the cashier at your local grocery store wipe down the belt or countertop between customers? Likely many of you. So keep a mental note of these examples as we talk through the best products and procedures for environmental hygiene. We'll circle back to them shortly. So as I said, while I feel like progress has been made in the area of environmental hygiene due to the pandemic, I believe there's still some misinformation that's circulating, particularly related to the product and procedures necessary to really achieve environmental hygiene. There are many products that can be used to reach this goal, and they each have a specific job. We formulate products in our R&D labs to clean or sanitize or even disinfect. But what's the difference? while a cleaner is formulated to remove soils, such as food particles, dirt, or other impurities from a surface, but it doesn't actually kill any organisms. A sanitizer significantly reduces the amount of bacteria on a surface. This is the tool used widely across food service operations, and it's fundamental to food safety. Remember, improper use of sanitizers was the #2 violation for food service operations. And finally, a disinfectant destroys or irreversibly inactivates infectious bacteria and viruses. This would be the product type necessary to address concerns around COVID-19, which is caused by a novel virus, or other pathogenic organisms like norovirus that might exist in human waste. Historically, disinfectants may have been confined to the restroom in your operation, but increased awareness about how pathogens are transmitted, particularly during this pandemic, has encouraged the use of disinfectants in many areas of a food service operation, most especially those high-touch surfaces like doorknobs or railings or shared items like menus and pens. Both sanitizers and disinfectants are regulated by the US EPA, and they're used to manage public health risks. Because they make claims to control a pest, such as a bacteria or virus, they require registration with the agency. Surface disinfectants are subject to more rigorous EPA testing requirements, and they must clear a higher bar for effectiveness or efficacy. When using these types of products, it's critical to read and understand the product label because the label is the law. One of the most common procedural mistakes I see with the use of antimicrobial products, or sanitizers and disinfectants, is related to the contact time. The contact time, sometimes also referred to as the kill time or dwell time, is the amount of time a surface must remain wet in order to be sanitized or disinfected. The environmental surface must remain wet for the complete contact time so that these products can do their job. So let's think back to the two examples I raised just a few minutes ago. The signs promising that environmental surfaces are frequently cleaned and sanitized, or your grocery store cashier spraying and immediately wiping the belt or countertop between customers. Do you see where the misinformation has crept in? All of the signs we see posted on storefronts should be touting the cleaning and disinfection they're doing on a more frequent basis. Because as we now know, a disinfectant is the product you'd need to inactivate the novel virus. What about your friendly neighborhood cashier? Should they be spraying and immediately wiping the belt or countertop between guests? Well, not if they actually want the product to be able to do its job. They need to ensure that the surface remains wet for the complete contact time. All of this to say, environmental hygiene is an important piece of the equation, and there's always an opportunity to make small, incremental changes that are actually quite substantial when we think about the impact on food safety and public health. So we've gone through the best practices for mitigating the risk of COVID-19, but how do we decouple these great infection prevention measures that we've implemented without taking a step back on both food safety and public health? Well, I don't know about you, but I think data is a pretty powerful tool that we can use to highlight the impact of our hyper-focus on both personal and environmental hygiene last year. Let's start by looking at some flu data. The maps on this slide illustrate influenza-like illness across the US during the 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021 flu seasons, respectively. The difference between these two maps is striking. During the earlier flu season, influenza-like activity was in the high to very high range for a majority of the states, whereas during the last flu season, we saw very minimal activity. It's clear that something significant happened here. Let's take a look at the norovirus data to see if the story is the same. The graph on the left shows the number of suspected or confirmed norovirus outbreaks reported by week across a one-year time span. The red line at the bottom of the graph illustrates outbreaks during the 2020 to 2021 norovirus season. The number of outbreaks reported during this last year is well below the range reported during the same period over the previous 7 years. That data is represented by that thicker gray line. Similarly, the graph on the right shows the number of confirmed norovirus outbreaks by month from September of 2019 through March of 2021. It's again quite clear that the number of reported outbreaks dropped substantially during COVID times compared to pre-pandemic. So what does this all mean? Well, there are obviously a number of confounding factors that have contributed to keeping both influenza and norovirus case counts low, the primary one being reduced in-person interaction. However, other factors that have contributed to keeping the numbers low are the other infection prevention measures that have been put in place. Things like mask wearing, physical distancing, isolating when ill, increased focus on hand hygiene, and more frequent cleaning and disinfection. So what have we learned over the past year? What should we keep and what can we leave behind as we move toward the new normal? First, we need to remain focused on hand hygiene. I'm going to pause and say that again. We need to remain focused on hand hygiene. As I mentioned, hands are a primary route of transmission, so they should be washed often and correctly. Ensure that hand care products, both soap and hand sanitizer, are accessible to customers and staff, and that your product dispensers remain full. Hanging signage throughout your operation to remind patrons about the importance of washing their hands would be a best practice. And make sure that the products you use are FDA compliant and contribute to skin health. Lastly, offer ongoing training and positive reinforcement to your staff. We cannot let off the gas on this one. I just read a study today, actually, that reported an unfortunate side effect of reduced COVID restrictions and increased vaccinations. Hand washing has dropped to pre-COVID levels, despite the fact that we're still in the midst of a pandemic and that there are other bugs out there that can make us sick. Don't be that person. Wash your hands. Another thing we've learned during the pandemic is the importance of disinfecting high-touch surfaces and objects. Customers are more aware now than they've ever been about the organisms on surfaces. And while their focus may have been on SARS-CoV-2, we know there are many other infectious microorganisms that reside on surfaces. Selecting the right disinfectant is key. Look for one that has a broad spectrum of kill, is a one-step cleaner and disinfectant, can be used on many surfaces in an operation, and has a short contact time. All of these considerations will drive compliance at the unit level and ensure that the disinfectant can effectively do its job in support of public health. Training is something that is here to stay, and likely even more important now as you onboard and retool your staff. In order to maximize impact, it's important to continue cross-training your employees, as this will support operational efficiency. When it comes to adult learning, understand that one style does not fit all, and there's no such thing as one and done. Make sure you give some context to the training and include hands-on components. Additionally, utilize real-time feedback, refresher courses, and even audit programs to maintain performance. Finally, let's keep that transparency and resilience. Continue to communicate and promote your extra efforts through multiple channels, and ensure that hygiene remains visible, as this has become a customer expectation. Recent survey data shows that more than 3/4 of respondents felt that a restaurant's cleanliness and food safety procedures would continue to matter more to them now than they did pre-pandemic. So what can we leave behind? Well, here's my 2 cents. Let's leave behind products that may have been positioned as silver bullets. Instead, let's focus on the layered approach to infection prevention, including both personal and environmental hygiene. Let's move away from complicated or overly prescriptive procedures and instead continue to focus efforts on enhanced hygiene in alignment with risk. When it's time, let's leave behind the barriers and the distance, and let's get back to serving multitudes of happy customers in bustling dining areas. And finally, we should absolutely leave behind the fear of constant change and the unknown. We've all come out of this a little bit battered and bruised, but the future is bright for the restaurant industry. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found this session enjoyable and even learned a thing or two. I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Visit me at the Ecolab Expo booth during the networking session to follow. Take care.
Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Of course. So we're grateful that the NRAEF provides thousands of scholarships every year to students across North America. Specifically for DiRōNA, you manage the scholarships through our foundation as well. So can you tell us a little bit about the applications this year compared to previous years prior to the pandemic?
Sure, I'm happy to. It's interesting. We normally give out about $1 million of scholarships every year. And last year in 2020, we found that those scholarships declined. I think with COVID, there were so many families, so many parents, so many kids who were really not quite certain what to do about their college choices. Many folks chose to take a year off, to take some time to kind of wait and see what's going to happen with the pandemic. And so our application numbers went down a little bit. And this year they've come roaring back. And so we're deep in our application review process right now for the coming year. And our application numbers are skyrocketing. We've got a team of about 100 people reviewing applications in that application process. And we're really looking forward to granting over $1 million of scholarships yet again this year, and sending so many bright, talented young people off to college, and making that experience a little bit more affordable and a little bit more enjoyable, hopefully with our financial support.
Well, that's fantastic to hear that it's returning to a point where you're able to distribute those scholarships, and to the point where students are excited and in a position to go back to studies again. So that's fantastic. So during the time where you did see a decrease in the applications, I understand that you turned your initiatives elsewhere. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit for us and explaining to us what you were doing in the meantime?
I'm happy to. The National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation really is dedicated itself to changing lives and improving communities. And scholarships is one of the many things that we do at the foundation to try to support the lives of those associated with the industry. Obviously, when COVID hit, everyone's world got turned upside down, including ours. And in fairly short order, once we saw restaurants starting to be shut down, once we saw the massive unemployment that was happening in the restaurant industry in the United States, but really worldwide, we knew that we had to do something. And so we have about a 25-person team here. We shut down everything that everyone was working on, and together we launched a relief fund that we call the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund. And we did it in partnership with Guy Fieri. We had no idea what we were doing. We just knew that we wanted to try and help people. And in a fairly short amount of time, we raised about $22 million in relief funds from companies and individuals all around the country. We turned that into over 43,000 one-time $500 grants to displaced restaurant workers, folks who had either lost their jobs or dramatically seen their hours reduced due to COVID. And so really, for about 4 months last year, in kind of the height of the pandemic, April, May, June, July, into August, our foundation was totally reinvented as a national relief effort to benefit restaurant workers. It was a fantastic effort, and one that we were thrilled to play a role in, and to help out so many restaurant workers in their time of need. Wow,
that is a fantastic effort. And as someone who works in the industry and other attendees for DiRōNA Day, thank you for your efforts. It's so appreciated. And you mentioned that the relief program kind of took over what you were doing. Is that going to continue to be a big part of your educational foundation as well moving forward? Or do you hope to transition slowly back into the scholarships?
Great question. We looked at this really in 2 phases with COVID. The first phase was relief, and immediate economic and financial relief, particularly because the government hadn't yet stood up any of their relief programs. Early in the process, people were really desperate for funding. Now the government has come in, and some of their financial and unemployment and other assistance programs for individual workers have really taken hold. So we've moved from relief to recovery in our efforts. And so the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund is no more. We've shut it down. But we've launched a new initiative that we call Restaurants Advance. And that really is designed to help both current and future restaurant workers to access the education and the training that they need in order to be successful. So we talk about three main pillars: Restaurants Advance Futures. We talk about how restaurants advance communities, and we also talk about how restaurants advance entrepreneurship. And so, in advancing futures, we really are working to help attract people to the industry. All of a sudden, as things have reopened in the States, we have shortages of restaurant employees, and so we're working very hard to assist in attracting employees into the industry. We work to advance communities by helping employers and others make sure that they have the training and skills that they need in order to help their employees succeed. And we ultimately advance entrepreneurship by helping people in the industry move not from being an employee in the industry, ultimately to chase that American dream of ultimately owning their own restaurant. So Restaurants Advance, we've launched a national multi-million-dollar fundraising campaign against that, already having great results with companies like Constellation Brands and Netflix stepping forward and wanting to partner with us. And while we've just launched the initiative, we're really excited to see where it can go and the ways in which we can help benefit the recovery of the restaurant industry as we begin to turn the corner on COVID.
So it seems like the efforts of the program are forever changing, but always very important. So that's fantastic. And actually, one of our sponsors today is Ecolab. And I understand that you have an involvement with Ecolab in ProStart. Would you mind giving us a little bit of information about that today?
Yes, Ecolab has been a longtime financial supporter of so many organizations in the restaurant hospitality industry: DiRōNA, the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation, and many more. They have been, long-standing, steadfast supporters of the foundation. And this year, with some support from Ecolab, we were able to really benefit our ProStart program in its time of need. ProStart's an amazing program that is offered in all 50 states around the country in about 1,900 high schools, and it's a comprehensive career and technical education program teaching about 130,000 students a year about the restaurant and hospitality industry and accelerating their pathway into the industry. Well, our ability to teach in high schools has been greatly challenged over the last year or so, and education's gone virtual. You lose some of the classroom time. We've kind of been having to reimagine the ProStart program. And with Ecolab's support, we were able to invest $750,000 of new funding into the ProStart program, I believe it was last month, and to support ProStart and our state restaurant association ProStart partners in all 50 states. And so really, really timely financial support to a critical program at a critical juncture in its history, again, as we in schools around the country try and continue to allow students to learn and experience the excitement of the restaurant industry, even though they have to do it in a slightly different way.
And that's so important to avoid, a gap in interest in the restaurant industry. So that's wonderful. And moving to something exciting coming up, finally, we do have an in-person event with Ted Balestreri, the Leadership Classic Golf Tournament at Pebble Beach, scheduled for August. Do you have some information on that event?
I sure do. The Ted J. Balestreri Classic is our largest fundraising event of the year. It will be held from August 19th to the 22nd. It's out in Pebble Beach. We play 3 different amazing golf courses. We do an auction. There's a lot of celebrities who are there. A lot of powerful and influential CEOs and owners in the industry. It really is an unbelievable gathering opportunity for folks who are passionate about the restaurant industry, who want to financially support the work of the foundation, help underwrite all the good that we do to help us raise some money while having a little fun and join a little fellowship. Restaurant people are folks by nature, and we've all been kind of pulled apart over the last year and a half. We're really excited about tail end of August, bringing people back together at the Ted J. Balestreri Leadership Classic. And for any of our listeners on the DiRōNA Day broadcast, you can learn more about the Classic as well as all the activities of the foundation at chooserestaurants.org, www.chooserestaurants.org. So thank you for asking about a fantastic event of ours.
Of course, and I will look forward to hearing about how it goes and all the wonderful things that come about after the tournament and all the other amazing events that you will have going on as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that information. And we'll close today just with any other information that you think is informative for our attendees and your fellow industry peers that you'd like to add.
I would just say that this is the restaurant and hospitality industry is an amazing industry, and it's a resilient industry, and it has gone through an absolutely devastating 12 to 15 months. We know how hard it has been. We're completely dedicated to supporting in any and every way we can the renaissance, the rebirth, the revitalization of the best industry that's out there. We salute DiRōNA for all that it's always done and what it's doing here right now in restaurateurs' time of need. We love our partnership and look forward to continuing it many years in the future. Thank you for reaching out to me today, and best wishes to you for a fantastic event.
Thank you so much for your time, Rob. Thank you for sharing all this information. Thank you for all the hard work that you've done on behalf of everyone in the industry. We so appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I am honored to introduce our next speaker today. We have with us Ted Balestreri, one of the founders of DiRōNA. Ted is also the owner of Cannery Row in Monterey, California, which owns and operates most of the businesses and restaurants in Monterey. Ted, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I certainly was general managing partner of Cannery Row, and we have some partners in that, and CEO of all the rest of the companies. We have a hotel company as well as the sardine factory. And my partner and myself, just to give you a little background, we started October 2nd, 1968, way before you were born. We opened up the sardine factory. That was a very exciting day. We had $960 to our name. We had to survive. We hit the lights, and it just took off and never stopped. And here we are, almost 52 years later. And but truly, the most challenging time was this year. And one of the reasons for the most challenging time was out of our control. And when things are out of your control, you feel a little bit helpless about things. And the hardest part of that was to let people go, close down the restaurant. I mean, I just don't remember my whole adult life, the last 52 years, not having that restaurant open. The only time we close is during the holiday, Christmas time, and clean it up a little bit, or we had to do some remodeling, but it's never. And but it tries men's souls, you might want to say, people's souls. And we had probably one of the roughest times we've ever had was worried about the employees, and they're the least that could afford this shutdown of all people. Bert and myself will survive it. We have other companies, we have hotels, but they had it rough. And thank God for the PPP. But one of the good things about this is we're also in the golf business. Golf shot up through the roof. Outdoors activities are shooting up. People are getting used to outside dining. You're going to see a lot more of that stay around for a long time, more outside dining. People get used to picking up meals through the back of the kitchen and food to go. So I think this, in spite of all of this, it got people into the habit of doing things they normally don't do. pick up from the restaurants, eating outside a lot more. And I think a lot of this is going to have a residual value going into the 21st century. The bad part is, just like we're doing now, there's more and more Zoom this, Zoom that. And even though the economy is coming back, and we can see it's coming back big time, especially in the leisure travel and fine dining, people want to get out, they want to eat, they want to enjoy themselves, thank God. But the group business is going to be a little slower. People are realizing they don't have to go to New York for one day, go to a board meeting the next day and fly back. They could do it Zoom. And I think Zoom's here to stay, and it's going to, I get chip away a little bit about the big conventions and a lot of the meetings in which you had to travel a long way and there's expense and the time. So I think that'll have some merit financially, but it's going to hurt travel and convention business. And we do 70 million tourists a year from around the world. And unfortunately, 30% of the world right now is not getting vaccinated, even in America. 30% of the people don't want the vaccine. Healthcare workers, 27% of the hospital here didn't take it. Until we have a standard policy and where you have something on your passport or on your iPhone or some way of saying that you're clean to travel, the tourists that we get from out of the country, all ships rise when you have 70 million tourists come to this country. They eat in all the best restaurants, all the guests, the hotels. And that's going to take a little longer because right now the criteria is you have to show you had a vaccination, or you have to show that you had the virus and you built up these types of immunities, or you're going to have to be tested right there at the airport or 72 hours before. So until we have a seamless type of way all countries buy into it for traveling, you're not going to see a lot of this world tourists from all around the world come back to the United States, or us leaving right now. A lot of countries you can't go to. So we have to have a kind of United Nations of all the countries to buy in to a seamless standard of rules, a Bible of how you can travel, and every country abides by it. Because people are afraid every country is different. Some states are different. So of all this comes out, will I bring us all together a little bit closer in the future? A lot of the safety measures and the sanitation security members will be in place for a lot longer after this virus leaves. I always tell people, great, stay at the hotels and eat the restaurants. Stay cleaner than your home. We put, I guarantee, many more restrictions. So our campaign is stamp out cooking at home. It's safer and cleaner to eat in a restaurant. We have stricter requirements than you do in the house and in the hotels. So you want to be safe, stay in a hotel and eat in a restaurant. So anyway.
You're absolutely right, Ted, that you bring up a great point. And I mean, you mentioned the impact of tourism that we've seen, how as far as Monterey goes, you see millions of people, millions of
7 million a year.
Exactly. So where do you stand now, and how is it currently being impacted, and how have you been impacted over the course of the past year and a half?
We have 7 hotels, 5 we operate. The leisure business is coming back, the family business, the leisure. And 62% of all our customers that stay in a hotel travel up and down the state. You know, they're not out of state, they're just people just getting away, San Francisco, LA. We used to do about 12% foreign travelers. That's zero practically, you know, and that's going to hurt because they spend the most. The further people travel, the more they spend. They don't tax the schools. They don't tax the social systems. It's like confetti. They travel on the highways at different times. It's the cleanest dollar in the world. We don't have a smokestack industry. Tourism is the greatest dollar we could possibly get. especially foreign tourists, because they leave their money, they go home, they don't tax the schools, the social services. So that's going to take a little while to come back. On conventions, and usually when you book conventions, it's a year or 2 or 3 out. And we haven't seen that bounce back yet. We've seen the leisure travel just jump, but not the convention business. It's been very slow coming back, if any.
Absolutely. And, getting that many people together at the time just based on restrictions is impossible. But it's great that we're starting to see it recover. And, hopefully it does get back to a point that we've seen historically. Obviously, everyone in the restaurant industry is very optimistic about this. And, relying on local customers as well and getting everyone local to Monterey in as well. Do you find that you do have a lot of local support?
Yeah, but you got to remember, Monterey, we have about 5,000 rooms, and our biggest things are Concours d'Elegance, the car show, or the AT&T Golf. Local support is great, but you only have about 40,000 people that live in Monterey, and you're probably in the Monterey County, you probably have 400 some restaurants. If everybody went out, they'd have almost their own dining room, So you need tourism to sustain, especially DiRōNA types, quality restaurant. First thing people say, what's the best restaurants in town to go to? What's this, the what, and they're going out for a dining experience. We have a saying at the Sardine factory, my partner and myself: if we made you feel at home, we made $1 million mistake. Our job is to make you feel better at home, or why the heck would you go out? And we never, ever advertise home cooked meals. If we can't do a better job than they do at the home, why would you go out?
Absolutely. And the Sardine factory, as you mentioned earlier, celebrating 52 years of operation. Wow, what an accomplishment that is. So congratulations to you and all your successes. That is the DiRōNA restaurant on Cannery Row. And bringing in DiRōNA, I mean, you've been so instrumental in DiRōNA as a business. Is there anything that you would like to speak to on how DiRōNA has been such a great company?
Well, I want to thank you and DiRōNA for keeping us together, because some of the greatest experience of my life were meeting with my peers, all my heroes over the years. Some of the great restaurants that my partner and myself used to look up to. A lot of them are gone today, and I hear every once in a while from John Arena. He used to have a famous one in Winston, and there was the Gotti brothers in San Francisco that had Ernie's, and Jerry Burns at 21 Club, and I can go on and on. Ella Brenner in New Orleans. They were my heroes growing up. Most of them are gone. Those fine dining restaurants. Here's the most important thing. We used to dine. Now people eat. There's a little difference. When you would come into a restaurant, I would allow 2 hours, 2.5 hours for you to dine. Today, they want to get in and out in an hour where the service stinks. We eat today. We used to dine years ago. I don't know where we lost civility, somewhere down the line. But I used to require a shirt and tie to come in and all. I understand the casualization of America. But I think they're losing a certain cachet, the way it used to be with the fine dining, the white gloves, the service. We're doing well, we're surviving, we're doing well. But there's a certain charm of that formality that we lost somewhere along the line.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? I've had the privilege of doing a lot of research on John Arena. You say he's one of your heroes. I've been able to read a lot about Winston's, and I must say, on behalf of myself and a lot of everyone viewing, you're really one of our heroes. So thank you so much for being such an inspiration. And, as we conclude today, we would love to hear some words of wisdom that you might have for fellow restaurateurs going forward and overcoming all the challenges that may come. Most importantly, the challenges that we've been able to overcome over the past 1.5 years.
Well, there's 2 or 3. I use the word win, W-I-N. What's important now? You can't look back. Not going to change. You're not sure what tomorrow. So if you want to be a success, use the word win. Take care of what's important now. And always remember the two most important characteristics is courage and character. Courage to do what's right, and character to know what to do what's right, or character to certainly is two of the most important things you need in a restaurant. You can't let this thing deter the quality of the service. You got to keep that standing up no matter what. And nobody coasts uphill, just downhill. So you got to keep pushing. A person who said he never had a chance never took a chance. So you got to keep pushing. Once you start to coast, you go this way. You got to keep figuring new ideas, new menus, new ways to excite your customers. And hospitality is the business we're in.
Thank you so much, Ted. Thank you for your time today and sharing with us so much informative information. It's great to hear from you as always, and we wish you all the best in Monterey.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you.
So today, DiRōNA Day, I think those viewing are obviously, and I'm asked all the time, how are you? How are you doing through COVID? And
Scott, I'm doing extremely well. I have my family, which takes very good care of me, and any traveling that I do, I have my daughter driving me around. I'm on top of the world. I had my checkup, and the blood pressure is 120/70. It's no cholesterol, 0.3 cholesterol. All in all, I'm doing well. I had my dental appointment yesterday, and thank God, no problems with my teeth. I have all my teeth. I eat well. I chew well. Life couldn't be better. Quite honestly, I pinch myself sometimes to see if it's real.
Now, for anybody that doesn't know, you're turning how old this year?
Well, I will be 97.
Right. Well, it's wonderful to hear you're in great health and always in good spirits. Today with DiRōNA Day, we focused a lot on, we spoke to a lot of restaurateurs, a lot of chefs, on what they've been going through the last year. It's been a great opportunity to have everybody, dispel some great advice to others. I mean, you've 80 plus years in the restaurant industry. It's unbelievable, but it's true. I know as a teenager, you were there in Mario's in Australia.
At the age of 14, I entered the industry and I never left it.
Have you ever seen anything like what the pandemic?
No, I have not. And in fact, I was talking to Italy yesterday, and in Italy they're going through some very hard times. Some of the great restaurants. I know that Peter, my former chef, who lives upstairs in the building here, he does small catering jobs, and three of them that he had coming up, patio, one was 10, one was 12, one was 19. They're canceled out. So it's tough for a lot of people.
Right.
I'm glad I'm out of it. On the other hand, I wish I wasn't, so that I could do my part in assisting wherever I could.
So what advice, you've been through, the different financial eras of difficulty, and I'm a restaurant owner through almost everything in the past 80 years.
I think the most important thing, Scott, is for people, for owners and staff to get together, sit down, discuss the situation, maybe take a little bit less pay, or work a couple of extra hours at for no money. They got to get down to and put the things on paper, record things, and live up to it in order to survive. I can't imagine the industry going on for very long and under these conditions. From what I hear, everybody's suffering. There's no exception. Everybody's suffering. Because you can't afford to keep open if you have no business. There was a rule which I think that the Premier of Ontario put in, that you could only use a patio, and then at 50% of the capacity. Well, a lot of people don't have a patio.
Right, and we've seen a lot of DiRōNA awarded restaurants that did not have a patio through last year.
That's right.
Some in New York City.
That's right.
Boston, that closed down because they had no access for revenue. So on to some
positive news, I'm sure you'd like to tell everybody that your biography has finally been written and it'll be
yes,
for
the
sale
biography
soon.
will
Tell us a bit.
will be coming out in the next 3 weeks. I've just put in the finishing touch in it, and I've selected some photographs, some with DiRōNA, photographs that will go in the book. It's a wonderful biography of a man who failed grade 3 in elementary school in Calabria, and seen the best of the best, catering to the Pope. Whoever catered to the Pope, John Arena. The Museum of Ball, under the direction of Lady Mary Early, 600 guests with no kitchen. When I brought in the chefs from Australia, my friend Claudio Magris, if you Google Claudio Magris on Google, Melbourne, Australia, you'll see this great man that I brought him in from Australia to do the museum ball dinner, which he built from lard, a 10-foot long and 2 feet high, Il Ponte dei Sospiri, the Bridge of Sight, out of lard. I mean, those things don't happen anymore. You know, I came across a photograph which my daughter found in a box here that of the buffet luncheon that Mario Vigano, when I left Australia, gave me at his farm at the South Morang in out of Melbourne, 14 kilometers out of Melbourne, gave me a farewell party that you'll never see the like again. Never see the like again because, first of all, the cost is prohibitively high. When I was, I don't know if you know that there is a company in New York that serves caviar, Prenosium, and this company in New York used to deliver to Winston's a can of caviar, Sevruga caviar or Beluga, one of the two, every Monday morning, a 2-kilo can, and then we would serve it at 35, in those days, $35 an ounce, and whatever was left on Monday, they would pick it up and send a new. See, nobody does things anymore. You know, the great Escoffier, the book that I gave you, John Falls, which is valued at 100,000 Canadian dollars, of the Epicureans, signed by Charles Delmonico, 1882, New York. Those things don't happen anymore. Those people are gone. Warren LaRuth was one of the greatest banquet decorators. Fred Stahel in Canada, my chef, was one of the greatest cold dish men. His pâtés were for the gods. It doesn't happen anymore. Did you know that Winston's was not allowed by rule of John Arena to have flowers on the table? Why? Because the flowers have an aroma, and in many cases would distort the aroma of the food. Did you know that we had a box in the kitchen that every dish, new dish that is, every new recipe would go in the box, piping hot just off the stove, and we would smell the true aroma because the box was closed in, 2 by 2 feet. It doesn't happen anymore, Scott.
Well, we had some wonderful words said during our interviews. We had a chance, we spent about 15 minutes with Ted Balestreri, and Ted ended his interview. He noted some of the greats, and Ted is obviously one of the greats, Ted and Bird in Monterey with the Sardine factory, and he ended it saying that his hero and heroes of Alla Brennan and Ruth Fertel is John Arena. So it's quite nice, the words, the grand words we had from Ted when he acknowledged you as one of the great restaurateurs in the history, and that you've been his hero. So it was a really nice touch.
Well, Ted has been a friend of mine for as long as I can remember.
Well, John, we're going to end it here. We've recorded for DiRōNA Day. We know that a lot of the great restaurateurs and chefs will be listening and be a part of this, and they're always always hoping you're happy and healthy and doing well, especially during the
I'm
pandemic.
indeed, Scott, and I want to thank you for the dedication that you have given to the situation, because DiRōNA Day is a special day, and I think that you are the man to handle it and manage it, and good luck. And if I can ever be of any assistance to you or to anyone, just let me know. I have time, and I have my mind is still with me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, John.